All right, today we're going to break down a pretty wild cyber attack. It's one that takes a tool millions of us use every single day, yep, Microsoft Office, and turns it into a weapon. We're talking about a brand new, highly sophisticated campaign that's been dubbed Operation Neusploit.
I know, it sounds a little dramatic, right? But seriously, this question gets to the very heart of what we're talking about. For a number of people in Central and Eastern Europe, the simple, everyday act of opening a document literally triggered a full-scale digital invasion of their computer.
So, let's set the scene here. The culprit is a notorious state-linked group known as AP28. That stands for Advanced Persistent Threat, and these guys are well known. They found a fresh, previously unknown way to break into systems through the one application we all kind of trust by default, Microsoft Office.
The weapon they're using is this, CVE2026-21509. Now this is a zero-day, which means it was a vulnerability exploited by attackers before a fix was even available to the public. It allows for something called remote code execution, which is, believe me, just as scary as it sounds. It means an attacker sitting anywhere in the world can run their own code on your machine just from you opening a single file.
And check out this timeline. It just shows you the speed and persistence of these attackers. They started hitting systems in January. Microsoft, to their credit, rushed out an emergency patch on January 26th. But just 3 days later, the attacks were still happening. APT28 was actively hunting for anyone who hadn't clicked that update button yet.
So how does this whole thing actually work? How do they go from a document to total control? Let's walk through the anatomy of this exploit.
It all starts with a carefully crafted document, specifically a rich text format, or RTF file. The victim opens it, thinking it's just, an invoice or a report, but that one click triggers the vulnerability. Instantly, the document reaches out to an attacker's server and downloads the first piece of malware. This is a dropper DLL, a little file whose only job is to install the real malicious payload.
Now, here's where it gets really clever. That dropper doesn't just have one mission. It's actually designed to install one of two completely different types of malware. It all depends on what the attackers want to accomplish on that specific computer.
So this brings us to these two very distinct paths of destruction. This shows some serious strategic planning, right? This isn't a one-size-fits-all attack. They've got different tools for different jobs.
And here are the two options on the table. On one hand, you have Minidoor. Think of this as the smash-and-grab thief. It's lightweight, it's fast, and it's built for one thing: getting in, stealing emails, and getting out. Then, on the other hand, you have Pixinet Loader. This is more like a deep-cover sleeper agent designed for long-term, stealthy espionage.
All right, so let's dive into that first path. If the dropper decides to install Minidoor, the goal is simple: data theft, specifically your emails. It's a specialized tool designed to raid Microsoft Outlook and nothing else.
So, how does it pull this off? Well, it doesn't just attack Outlook. It dismantles its defenses first. Minidoor dives right into the Windows registry, the DNA of the operating system, and starts changing key security settings. It enables all macros, turns off those annoying security warnings, and forces Outlook to automatically trust and load the attacker's malicious code.
So once those defenses are down, Minidoor just waits. The second you open Outlook, it springs into action. It silently scans everything: your inbox, your junk folder, even your drafts. Then it forwards whatever it finds to two email addresses that are hardwired into its code. And to cover its tracks, it sets a special property that deletes the forwarded messages from your sent folder. You'd never, ever know it happened.
But what if the attackers are playing the long game? What if they want more than just a quick email grab? What if they want to stay on your machine for weeks or maybe even months? Well, that's when they unleash Path 2, Pixinet Loader, the deep infiltrator.
To stay hidden, Pixinet Loader uses a really sneaky technique called COM hijacking. This is all about persistence, staying on the system without being found. The malware modifies the Windows registry, basically tricking the operating system. Every time Windows calls for a legitimate program, it gets the malicious code instead. It's a classic bait and switch, happening deep inside your computer.
And if that wasn't sneaky enough, it's got another trick up its sleeve: steganography. This is basically the digital version of invisible ink. The attackers hide their malicious code inside a perfectly normal-looking file, which makes it incredibly difficult for security software to spot.
And get this is how clever it is. The file they used was a simple image named splashscreen.png. They embedded the malicious code by making tiny, completely imperceptible changes to the color data of the individual pixels. So to the naked eye, it's just a picture. But to the malware, it's a hidden instruction manual.
So, what's the endgame for this path? The final payload is something called a covenant grunt. This is a powerful backdoor that gives the attackers persistent control over the machine. And to communicate, it doesn't use some shady, suspicious server. Nope, it uses the API for a totally legitimate cloud storage service called Filen. All its traffic just blends in with normal cloud activity. It's the definition of hiding in plain sight.
Okay, so we know what happened and how it happened, but the big question is, who did it? Let's connect the dots and see how researchers pinned this whole operation on the group known as APT28.
Well, researchers are pretty certain it was APT28, and here's why. First, the targets. The focus on organizations in Central and Eastern Europe fits right into APT28's long-established playbook. Second, the email stealer, Minidoor, turns out to be a simplified version of another piece of malware called NotDoor, which is a known tool in APT28's arsenal. And finally, that tactic of abusing the Filen API, yep, they'd seen APT28 do that before in a different campaign. The digital fingerprints all point in the same direction.
Okay, that's the scary part. Now for the most important part, what can we actually do about it? Let's talk about a digital defense plan.
Look, I can't stress this enough. The number one, most important, absolutely critical thing you can do is patch your systems. Microsoft released a security update for this vulnerability. Applying it closes the exact door these attackers are walking through. It's that simple.
Beyond patching, it's all about vigilance. Be extra suspicious of RTF documents, especially if you don't know the sender. And for all the security teams watching, here are the technical breadcrumbs to look for. Hunt for those specific Outlook registry changes. Keep a close eye on any unusual network traffic going to Filen's API, and monitor for any COM hijacking attempts on that Ian Store Shell DLL file.
So yeah, this specific vulnerability, this 10-day, has been patched. But it really makes you think, doesn't it? It leaves us with this lingering question. How many other unknown, unpatched vulnerabilities are just waiting, hiding inside the common, everyday files we all open without a second thought?